Okay, let's dive in. You've given us quite a stack here. Articles, research, notes, all focused on Earth's moon.
Yeah, a place we think we know so well, but this material really shows there's always more beneath the surface, doesn't it?
Totally. We've got hard science, seismic data, new discoveries.
And then we also have folklore, centuries old myths, and some, well, pretty mind bending modern theories, too.
Exactly. So our mission today, together with you, is to sift through all this, pull out the key facts, understand the science.
Then maybe explore some of those surprising misconceptions and stories that just seem to stick around.
It's that mix, isn't it? Like the solid proof of moonquakes versus, say, the idea of a hollow moon.
Or even secret alien bases. It's all in the mix you gave us.
Right. So let's unpack it. Let's try to get a clearer picture of the moon, the real moon, and the stories we tell about it based on these sources. Where do you think we should start?
Well, I think we almost have to start with that big one, the hollow moon theory. It's just so persistent.
Ah, yes. The idea that it's not solid rock all the way through, that there's this huge cavity inside.
Or maybe even that it's artificial, like the spaceship moon concept some people talk about.
But the science in these sources is pretty definitive on this, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The seismic data, especially from the Apollo missions, where they deliberately crashed things.
Right, and the later rover data, too.
Yeah, it all paints a clear picture. The moon has a solid interior. It's differentiated. It's got a core, a mantle, a crust. Different from Earth's, sure, but layered and solid.
And the analysis of moonquakes, the natural ones, some quite strong, like up to 5.5 magnitude shallow ones.
And those induced quakes from the impacts, they all reinforce that solid, layered structure, no big empty space.
Okay, but then what about that whole ringing like a bell thing? That seems to be the linchpin for the hollow theory.
Right, that comes from those Apollo experiments. Apollo 12, they crashed the lunar module ascent stage back onto the moon.
And the vibrations lasted for, was it an hour?
A full hour after peaking, around 8 minutes, yeah. And the Apollo 13 impact was even bigger, lasted longer.
So people heard about that, maybe heard the quote, comparing it to a tuning fork,
Exactly. There's a quote in the notes from R. Neal saying, it just keeps going and going, like a tuning fork.
and jumped to, it must be hollow.
Which is a total misinterpretation. The sources are really clear on the actual science. The moon doesn't literally ring like a bell, and it's definitely not hollow.
So what is the reason for the long vibrations?
It's all about dryness. The moon's interior is incredibly dry compared to Earth's. Here, water in the rocks dampens seismic waves pretty quickly.
Wow, okay.
But on the moon, that dry, rigid rock just lets the vibrations travel on and on without much to slow them down.
So dryness, not hollowness. That really does put the ringing like a bell idea into a completely different context.
Definitely. A fascinating bit of science that got twisted. Okay, so moving on from that big debunking, what else stands out from the sources?
How about the fact that the moon is apparently shrinking? That kind of goes against the old idea of it being geologically dead, right?
Totally. For ages, the thinking was, yeah, volcanoes stopped billions of years ago. It cooled down. It's static now.
But the newer data, especially from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter building on Apollo stuff,
Shows that's not quite right. It is still shrinking very slowly.
how do they know?
They see active fault lines on the surface, little cliffs called scarps. And these faults are still causing moonquakes. It means the crust is still contracting as the deep interior continues to cool.
And the notes give a number, which I thought was amazing. It's shrunk by about 150 feet in circumference over hundreds of millions of years.
Tiny on a cosmic scale, but it shows it's not inert.
But no need to worry about it disappearing anytime soon.
No. The sources reassure us it'll definitely be around for future missions. It's a very, very slow process.
Okay, good to know.
Oh.
Next up, something huge that the material says really upended our view. Water on the moon.
Yes, this is a game changer. For so long, the moon was the poster child for a dry, barren world.
People speculated about maybe ice in polar craters, but the early missions didn't find much, right?
Yeah.
Not on the surface, no atmosphere to hold it, not in the rocks they brought back initially.
Exactly. And then the timeline in your notes shows this rapid shift. Around 2009, just hints, trace amounts.
And then 2010.
Suddenly, findings suggesting 100 times more water than they'd thought.
Wow.
And by 2018, confirmation of actual ice deposits at the poles, kind of like Earth's ice caps, plus evidence for water locked inside lunar rocks in the mantle.
The sources say this changed much of what we know and basically rewrote its history.
It really did, and it throws open these massive questions, which the materialists, like, did the moon help bring water to Earth early on?
Could it have supported life in the past?
Or even more intriguing, could there still be microbial life tucked away somewhere? It
Yeah.
just opens up so many possibilities.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. From hard science to some of those really ingrained cultural ideas, starting with maybe the most famous food-related one.
Ah, the moon is made of cheese.
Where does that even come from? The notes mention a couple of things.
Yeah, there's some Asian folklore mentioned, a fox tricking a wolf using the reflection in water.
And the English proverb connection.
Right, John Haywood, 1546. He's the guy credited with lots of proverbs we still use, like a penny for your thoughts. He used, the moon is made of a green cheese. Green meaning new or unaged, not the color to basically say someone was really gullible.
So it's always meant metaphorically, most.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
Although there's that fun detail from a 1902 psychology survey in the notes.
Oh, yeah.
They asked kids what the moon was made of. Some genuinely said cheese.
What else do they say?
Oh, all sorts. Rags, gold, balloons, yellow paint, even dead people who join hands in a circle of light. Kids' imaginations, huh?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But the main point is, for adults, it's always been about calling someone naive, not a literal belief.
Exactly. Which kind of leads into another long-held belief connecting the moon and human behavior, lunacy.
Right, the idea that a full moon makes people act strangely, causes insanity, affects seizures, fertility, werewolves, obviously.
The word itself, lunacy, comes straight from luna, the Latin for moon. The association is ancient.
What does the science say? The sources mention studies, right?
Lots of studies over the years, yeah. But the material says they've generally been inconclusive. People have proposed theories like maybe the moon's gravity subtly affecting body fluids or...
Maybe just the extra light disrupting sleep. That seems plausible.
That's another idea mentioned. But the sources also highlight a big review from the late 80s that looked at like 100 studies.
Yeah.
Its conclusion was pretty damning. It said the evidence linking the full moon to weird behavior was spotty, poorly conducted, and swayed by biases.
So basically, while the idea is deep in our culture, the scientific proof just isn't really there, according to this research.
Seems that way, based on what's presented here. All right, so from ingrained belief to outright lies, how about the Great Moon hoax?
1835. This is a wild story.
Isn't it? The New York Sun newspaper, apparently the biggest paper at the time, starts publishing these articles.
Claiming that a real astronomer, Sir John Herschel, who was genuinely in South Africa observing stars.
Had built this super telescope and was seeing life on the moon.
And not just microbes, but like bat-winged humanoids covered in copper hair.
Yep, 4 feet tall, living in pyramids, grazing with bison-like creatures, just totally fantastical stuff.
It sounds ridiculous now, but people bought it.
Apparently so. The notes say a bunch of scientists from Yale even went to New York hoping to see the proof.
Wow. So what was the deal?
It was all fake. A complete fabrication apparently intended as some kind of satire about science and religion.
And the paper just kept it going.
For a whole month before they finally admitted it was a hoax.
And the kicker, according to the source material,
is that their circulation went up because of it. Which led to that observation that, well, sometimes people like a good story more than the truth.
a bit depressing maybe, but probably true sometimes. Okay, speaking of stories that are out there, let's touch on the Nazi lunar base thing.
Right. Now, this is firmly in the conspiracy theory category, but it's mentioned in the source material, so we should cover it.
Okay, so what's the theory?
The idea is basically that Hitler and Eva Braun didn't die in the Berlin bunker in April 45.
Okay.
Instead, they supposedly zipped off in a rocket ship to a secret Nazi base on the moon, which, according to the theory, had been set up back in 1942.
Wow. And sometimes it involves flying saucers, too.
Yeah, the notes mention a link, maybe like the Roswell kind of craft. It's all very elaborate.
But, just to be absolutely clear, the historical fact, as stated in the material,
Is that Hitler died in the bunker in Berlin in 1945. This moon base idea is purely a conspiracy theory that exists, and we're just relaying what the source says about it.
got it. Important distinction.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to something more concrete from actual lunar missions. What happened to the American flags they planted?
Ah, those iconic images. You'd hope they'd last forever.
But maybe not.
Well, the sources say Buzz Aldrin himself reported that the very first flag, Apollo 11's, got knocked over by the blast when their lunar module lifted off.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And there was speculation later, mentioned in Air and Space magazine, that because it was like a $5.50 flag, it probably just disintegrated pretty quickly anyway.
Okay, what about the other 5?
NASA checked using the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter in 2012. The images show the other 5 flags are still standing,
Oh, good.
but they're Almost certainly completely bleached white by now, just rags, really.
Hmm.
The source describes them as likely badly faded, ragged, washed out pieces of white cloth.
Right.
Just the conditions.
Yeah.
Intense, unfiltered UV radiation from the sun and massive temperature swings between lunar day and night. Incredibly harsh environment. So standing, yes, but not exactly flying proudly in full color anymore.
Right. Okay, one more theory from the really out there end of the spectrum in your sources. The moon as a hologram.
Yeah, this one's quite something. According to the Believers mention,
Hmm.
the moon we see isn't fully real. They think maybe there's a smaller real object up there.
Okay.
But the full moon, especially, is actually a massive hologram projected by aliens.
A hologram. Why?
The theory claims it's to hide whatever secret stuff the aliens are doing behind it. Construction, projects, who knows.
And the source mentions something about Russian scientists.
It does note, kind of cryptically, that the theory is somehow backed up in a research paper written by Russian scientists. No more details given, though. It's just presented as another example of the sheer range of ideas people have.
Wow. Okay. From seismic waves to holograms via cheese and Nazis. We've covered some ground.
It really shows that split, doesn't it? The moon as this object of intense scientific study revealing fascinating, complex truths.
And the moon as this blank canvas for human imagination, fears, folklore, and just wild speculation.
Exactly. And, the material you shared also rightly points out that the story of lunar exploration isn't just about Apollo.
Right. The Soviet Union's Luna program gets highlighted too.
And they had some incredible firsts,
Yeah.
especially with robotic probes.
Like the very first soft landing, Luna 9, 1966.
Yep. And the first pictures of the far side, Luna 3, back in '59, a whole new view of the moon,
Plus the first long-duration rover, Lunokhod 2.
which was deployed by Luna 21 in '73. And crucially, they brought back lunar soil samples robotically before the U.S. did, with Luna 16, 20, and 24.
And the Zond missions circling the moon.
Yeah, a really significant robotic program, even if they didn't achieve the manned landing. Lots of pioneering work there.
So we've really taken a deep dive today thanks to all the material you brought together.
We have. We've looked at solid science, debunking the hollow moon, learned about the shrinking moon and the water discoveries,
You've revisited old proverbs, famous hoaxes, conspiracy theories.
checked on the flags, considered holograms, and acknowledged the Soviet contributions. It's been quite a tour.
It is really striking, that contrast. The scientific moon solid, shrinking slightly, water-rich, geologically complex.
Versus the moon of myth and imagination hollow, made of cheese, driving people mad, hiding aliens.
It's fascinating how both exist side by side.
What really stands out to me, though, thinking about all this, is how recently some truly fundamental discoveries were made. Like the water thing.
Yeah, just in the last couple of decades, really changing everything.
Exactly. And it just makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Wonder what?
Well, it raises this question for you, the listener, to ponder. If our understanding of something as basic as whether the moon has water could change so dramatically, so recently, what other fundamental things about our closest neighbor might we still be completely wrong about? What other huge surprises could be waiting in the data from future missions, future deep dives?
That's a really interesting thought to end on. What else don't we know?
There's always more to learn, isn't there, about that familiar face in our night sky?
There certainly is. Well, thanks for joining us on this exploration of the moon's mysteries and misconceptions.